So we missed last week because of some snow. I hope y'all had a good snow day. I hope you had a great 2-day school week because you had Martin Luther King Day off and then 2 days off of school.
Me and Wes had a fun time.
It's okay.
It's actually 1.5 a day.
Oh, yeah. So, does anybody remember what we talked about the week before that?
Was it that time you took that, like, long story, how you went on a, like, trip and then you took, like, 9 hours to get back?
Yeah.
Rex cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't want to pay for the interstate park.
So y'all remember the story. What were we talking about?
How stupid that guy was.
Jesse didn't want to pay the
So like how in our life, sometimes we go on a actually make a wrong turn in our journey of life. So tonight we're going to talk about detours. And so sometimes when life gets difficult, it hurts. And sometimes it hurts physically. So there's this one time that I had to run bleachers.
Oh, we do that every day. Yep.
So I had to run bleachers in football. And if you know, did it feel good?
No, we were like,
good
We had to run 5 miles today.
listen to the fun, but we ran 5 miles.
Suicide after
Then we had to do push-ups and every kind of crap.
Bleachers are like the worst. And the way that our athletics was set up, it was right after lunch. And so there was this one time where I truly believe that our coaches didn't really want us to do anything, or they didn't want to do anything, so they said just go run bleachers all day. And it was after we ate spaghetti for lunch. So anyways, we had these bleachers, and we had to run up this one side, the handicap ramp, and then go up and down, up and down, up and down, run down the other handicap ramp, run around the track to the opposite side, run up and down, and then come back. We had to do this like multiple times. And I was a lineman, and I was still about the same size as I am now, maybe a little bit slimmer, but not as much. But I was center at the time. So I was a lineman, and linemen, there's a reason we're linemen. We don't want to run very far, all right? Is that right, Jamel?
Especially probably.
Yeah.
That dude was on the football team on the last game.
We don't want to run very far. And we had to do this multiple times. And I think it was like the second turn that I was doing it. I was just heaved over. And my spaghetti, let me say, it tasted a lot better going in than it did coming out. But it was bad. It was bad. And so after that, I was just so sore. And I just couldn't move. And that next morning, I was supposed to go hunting. And I really wanted to go hunting that morning, but I just couldn't get out of bed. It was just, that pain was all over me. I just felt like junk. I felt bad. So I had to cancel my hunting plans.
Oh, I would have laughed. You can't.
So I was just like, all right, I'll go hunting the next morning because, after like a day or so, maybe like 2 days, you start to feel a little bit better, right? After you work out, like very intense, you start to feel better. The reason you get so sore is because of, come on guys, what is it?
Muscle.
Fat.
Because you have
But because
you're not in shape.
Because now you're starting to build that muscle. See, when your muscles tear, when your muscles rip, they start to regrow back, and that's what causes the pain. Because you're getting stronger from that. I was just in so much pain I couldn't move. But I had to constantly remind myself, because of this pain, I'm going to be a little bit more stronger. And that, even after you lift weights, if you just bench press a lot more than what you used to, right there, it starts to hurt. You know, you get that. Everybody gets that. It's in athletics. Pain makes you stronger. But getting stronger hurts, right? How do we handle our pain when we're talking about this series? How do we handle pain in our lives? Let's not just look at the physical side. How do we normally handle pain when it comes up in our lives? Yes.
Ibuprofen. No, ibuprofen. I mean, what's it called? Ibuprofen. I didn't mean to say ibuprofen. I meant to say,
Listen, Jackson, what do you got, Jackson?
Well, what I try to do, I try to pray about it. That's what my dad has tried to teach me. I try to pray about.
Yeah, so like in our lives, Jackson's right on. In our lives, when not physically, but emotionally, or even spiritually, or any of that, when we experience pain from a loss of a loved one, from family matters that's happening at home, just getting a bad grade at school, whatever it is, when you experience that pain, we know that eventually we'll become stronger because of that. And we have to take the right precautions to heal from those pains. So last week, or the week before last, we were talking about a man by the name of Moses. And Moses had some detours in his life. He was put in a basket by his mom because Pharaoh at the time was going to try to kill all the male babies, actually all the babies. And then he just had stuff after stuff brought upon him. He saw another a slave owner beating up a Hebrew guy, and he killed him, and he ran off. And then he had this burning bush talk to him. And then we're going to skip ahead a little bit to where the Hebrews are saved, are rescued, but in between there, Moses did what he was supposed to from what the burning bush told him, what God told him there in the burning bush. He went back to Pharaoh and said, "Pharaoh, let my fellow Hebrews go." What do you think Pharaoh said? No. How many times do you think Pharaoh said that? 10 times. All right. So Pharaoh said that 10 different times. And then each time that Pharaoh said that, there was a plague that happened. Whether it be locusts or boils, nasty boils on their skin, or flies, gnats, water turning into blood.
Animals die too.
And then the very last plague was death from the children. Then finally Pharaoh said, "Y'all get out of here. Y'all get out of here." So tonight we're going to talk about where the Hebrews are. God said, let me back up. Those 10 plagues, a very interesting fact. I'm going to kind of side skirt right here. Very interesting fact. 10 plagues, 10 commandments, they all interact with each other, okay? Everything in the Bible interacts with one another. All right? So tonight, the Hebrews are going to start this journey to leave Egypt to a place God called them to go, to the Promised Land. God happened to be represented as a column of smoke during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Interesting tidbit about that. If you go back and look at Abraham's story, when God says to Abraham, "Hey, I'm going to make a covenant between me and you," and Abraham has this dream where there's two splitting calves out in front of him and two doves split in two. A bowl of smoke and a bowl of fire passed through that sacrifice. God is sometimes portrayed in the Bible as a pillar of smoke or a fire. So see how these things are starting to line back up with each other? Everything in Scripture feeds off of one another. All right? So tonight, Exodus 13, 17 through 18, we're going to read. Let's read. Go ahead.
Wait, where do I stop at?
The whole thing.
Oh, when Pharaoh let the people go,
Oh, stop at the 11, because that 11's not supposed to be there.
Wait, where's 11?
You'll see it when you come to it.
Oh, I see it. All right, I see it. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them the road to the land of the Philistines, even though it was nearby. For God said the people would change their minds to return to Egypt if they faced war. So he led the people around toward the Red Sea along the road of the wilderness. And the Israelites left the land of Egypt in battle formation.
All right. So, God, does anybody know where Egypt is?
In Africa.
It
is.
All right. It's Middle East. But let's look at this map and you'll see. Check this out. This is where Egypt's at. So see, there's India, there's China, Saudi Arabia, Africa. Alright, so this is Egypt.
Egypt's far away.
No, man, it's close.
Alright, so this is Egypt. Alright? So God says, I'm going to send you to the promised land. Alright? So the promised land that God said he's going to send them to is up in this area, alright? Here's Egypt. Does anybody know like a direct route from Egypt to Jerusalem?
Northeast.
I mean, that would be like a direct route, right?
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah?
Jesus.
Alright, check this one out. These are the main roads. These are the main roads at the time that would go from Egypt to the promised land, to Jerusalem. Alright? So all the way up here, any of these are the main roads. These are the trade routes. This is what people would come back and forth on. So God, what? They would walk.
What the freak?
They would walk the whole time. So listen to this. God said, I am not going to take you by the direct route. I am actually going to take you a different way. See, the reason God said that is because if they were to go the direct route, the Israelites would be like, man, God, this is tiring. I don't know. I don't even think I could walk from here to the crossroads down there. But they would walk all this time, and they'd say, you know what? Life back in Egypt, being a slave, was so much easier. But you would think that they would be happy, because of being freed, right? But God said, no, I'm not going to take you the direct route. I'm going to put you on a detour. So this is the next route that God took them on. He took them all the way down the Sinai Peninsula, and then on up. When you say how they cross the, this is actually part of the sea. So a good story. Just read this back. The Israelites did cross the Red Sea on dry land because waters were split by God.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go back and read that story in Exodus. But God said, "I'm going to put you on a detour." Man, oh man. A trip that could have taken like 5 years to make took them 40 years to make.
Why do they go straight up and then come back?
Alright? So see, they were following God's plan.
How old was
They were following the pillar of smoke and the column of fire. They were following that. And then when they got down to the bottom, where it says about Mount Sinai, That's where the Ten Commandments came. Alright, so God took the Israelites on a detour. And they were just complaining and complaining and complaining, back after back after back. And then next week we're going to, actually, not next week for you guys, next week for the high school. Next week we're going to Hope, so be here at 6:15. What you would learn is during this time they were complaining about not having any food. So God sent something amazing for them to eat called manna, which is literally translated as, what's this? Alright, so they were just complaining all the time. And God took them on this detour. See, sometimes in our lives, God takes us on detours. When we may think one way is very easy, it's very easy for us to go, God may have a different plan. He may take us through some mountains. He may take us through some valleys, some dry places, some places that hurt. And for the Israelites, this hurt. See, Moses, even though he did all this thing, he led them out of captivity, and he took them on this big journey. You know what? Moses never got to set foot in the promised land. He got to see it from afar, but he never got to set foot in the promised land because there was a time where he disobeyed God on this journey. When God said, speak to a rock and water would flow from it, Moses decided, hey, when I lifted up my staff, the waters parted, and before you told me to strike a rock and water came out of it, well, I'm going to do the same thing this time. What works once is going to work twice. So he took his staff and struck the water, or struck the rock, and water flowed from it. When God specifically said to speak to the rock, to talk to the rock. And so because of that, Moses wasn't able to enter the promised land. However, he was able to look at it. But when life takes us on a detour, always remember that God has a destination for us ahead. And it might not be the way that we think it should go. So let me tell you a little story. I'll get to y'all's questions in a little bit. Let me tell you a little story. I used to work at a place called Mid-City Service Center. And what that was an auto repair shop. And when I was there, I had a manager by the name of Tam. Tam. T-A-M. And so Tam was a bigger lady, and she was fierce. I'm telling you, she was a monster. Okay? Like, she would ask me to go do some crazy stuff, and I thought, hey, this is ridiculous. You know what? I can go pick up these parts in this order, and she told me to go do it in this order. It was just some weird stuff. It was crazy. I was very upset pretty much every night I came home. You can ask Katie. It was a pretty bad time in my life. But Tam was just, she was getting on my nerves. I mean, there's sometimes where I wanted to do that, but I withheld. But she was just kind of crazy. You ever had that crazy person kind of tell you what to do?
Yes.
But after that is when I went into the racing world. Right after that, we went into the racing world, and I was just so relieved to be gone from Tam. And let me tell you this: when I went back to talk to her, or go back to the shop to talk to some of the other guys, I found out that she had got fired, and she was outside of the shop with a sign saying, "Don't come here." All right, so she was crazy. All right, she was crazy. But it was God it was God preparing me for something next. So see, when I got into the racing world, there was a guy by the name of Russ. And Russ was a team owner of a race team. And I like to ride with race teams. I like to go to where we were going because then I didn't have to drive my own vehicle. So I like to ride with them a lot. And there was this one trip we were going on. I was driving through Chicago. I was the first guy to drive. And I was driving through Chicago, and Russ says, "Hey man, go past the speed limit." And I was already doing like 5 miles over the speed limit. He just wanted me to go faster, he said, so we can get home quick. And I looked at him, I said, "Russ, are you going to pay my ticket if I get pulled over?" He said, "No." And I was like, "I'm going fine. I'm going the speed I'm comfortable with." And then it was just something crazy later on. We were at this truck stop, and I get out, and he asked me to clean the windshield. And I was like, "Man, this is kind of ridiculous, but okay, I'll do it." And so I cleaned the windshield with that little squeegee thing that's out there.
It makes it dirty.
And he's like, "All right, do it 10 more times." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not one of your employees. All right? I'm not an employee of yours. I'll do it once, but I'm done with that." And then he goes into the truck stop, and he comes back out, and he says, "One thing I can't stand is body odor." And I was like, "All right, dude, I didn't do a lot of work out there at the racetrack like y'all did, so I don't stink very much." And he's like, "Here." He went and bought some secret deodorant. All right, girls deodorant. Girls, you know, that little secret deodorant. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? And he said, "Put this on." I mean, after he uses it, and he says, "Go put this on." I'm like, "Dude, that's ridiculous. I'm not gonna use somebody else's. I'm not gonna use somebody else's deodorant." And I had my own deodorant in my bag, and so I was like, "I'll use mine." And so I sat in the back, and he was looking back behind us. All his other employees were asleep on the asleep in the seats. And so I kind of like sneaked behind and like just pretend I put it on. I was like, "Here you go, thank you, Russ." No, I wasn't gonna put that stuff on. So he was crazy. But the craziest part of it, I could kind of deal with that. But after like 10 hours on the road with this guy, you're like, "Oh, this is crazy." That wasn't the craziest story. One time he had a voodoo doll made of me. Alright? He had a voodoo doll made of me. And he was like sticking needles into it to try to make me like sick.
That's just crazy.
And I was like, "Oh man." And I came back and I thought, "God, thank you for allowing me to put up with Tam because you prepared me to deal with Russ." And if I hadn't worked with Tam before, I don't know if I could have handled Russ. See, God understands. God puts you through situations. He puts you through situations that will make you stronger come out of it. All right? Whenever we're going through something and we're like, "God, there must be an easier way," always remember, God has the destination in mind. And when God promises a destination, He is going to fulfill it. There's a story about Jesus in the New Testament where Jesus tells His disciples, "Hey, disciples, get into the boat, cross over to the other side, and I'm going to meet you there." All right, so that's a promise. Jesus said, "I will meet you on the other side." And so then, when the disciples were like halfway out, a sudden storm started to come up and started to crash all around them, and they said that they were going to die. And then they see Jesus walking on the water. See, God, when He promises something, He's going to fulfill it. He's going to fulfill that promise. Now, we may take a detour getting there, just kind of like the Israelites did. They took the long way around, but it made them stronger. And when they finally got to the destination, they had faith to fully rely on God. When before, they were relying on the Egyptians. They were relying on the Egyptians for food. They were relying on the Egyptians for jobs. They were relying fully on the Egyptians. And when God took them on this journey, it brought them to where they had to be fully reliant on God. When we go through stuff, and it's painful, when we go through a loss of a loved one, or a breakup in family, or hurts, God always has the destination for you. And He says, you're going to come out of this storm stronger than you were before you went into it. God can use your pain to prepare you. And that's what I want you to know. No matter what pain you have or what you're going through right now, He can use it to prepare you. Alright? Yep, Katie.
So what you're saying is, like, even though you go through hard times, listen to God and be prepared.
Listen to God, to fully be prepared for Him. So when we're going through these tough times, ask yourself some questions, okay? When you're going through these times. You might not be going through them right now, but I guarantee you, you will. Ask these questions. God, what are you preparing me for? What is on the other side that you have? And then next, God, what can I be grateful for? Because let me tell you, what you're going through right now is nothing compared to what other kids are going through all across the nation, all across the world, even right here in town. What you have, be grateful for it. Because there's kids in your school that are going through, and maybe even you, that are going through some tough, difficult times, and you don't even know. Because they aren't willing to let anybody know what's happening. There's some kids at your school that are getting beat by their parents. There are some kids at your school that are getting starved by their parents. There's some kids at your school. That just lost a parent. And they're going through some difficult times. And so when we see these kids that may act weird, and we may think that they're weird because they're acting all this way, just always remember, how can I help you? Because guess what? You're going to go through some of those pains too. Maybe not the exact pains that they're going through, but you're going to have some pains on yourself, and you want somebody to come up alongside you to help you through it. All right? Let's pray, and y'all have a great rest of the week, okay? Yeah, Caden. Yeah. Yes, Caden. Hey, listen up, Caden. Caden is going to pray for us.
Good job, Caden.
All right, let's pray.
I don't know, Caden.
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the things that you bring here, Lord. Thank you for just blessing their lives and helping them to prepare and always listen to you, Lord. I pray that you be with people who are going through the hard time in their lives, Lord. I pray that you just be with them and let them know that you're always